Hi guys, back with another video of another HPI Nitro that I recently picked up. I'm going through a phase where I'm kind of re-exploring my youth, as it were, and picking up the older retro Nitro models that I wanted back in the day, but for whatever reason, I couldn't get it. So I recently started that with purchasing a Nitro RS4. I then bought an HPI Savage. And I recently, in the last couple of months, picked this up. This is the HPI Racing Nitro MT2. So this is another kind of one of those retro Nitros that kind of came at the wrong time for me. In my opinion, this is kind of HPI's heyday. This was released in 2003, just as I was finishing school and kind of going off to uni, so I didn't really have an awful lot of cash or time to then start really getting into the Nitro side of the hobby. So here we are. Yeah, so I picked this up just over a month ago off eBay. I'm a little bit skeptical about Nitro eBay purchases because you never really know what you're going to get or how it's been looked after. So let's have a look. This is how it arrived. She's looking pretty good. There's a couple of things that aren't standard that have been added by previous owners. And there's a couple of things that are going to need a bit of attention. We'll fire her up, see how she runs. She should run. The seller did say in the description that everything works as it should. So let's have a look. So firstly, start with the outside, and this is one of the reasons why I always wanted to have one of these trucks. They look so good. The shape of the body, the color scheme as well on the MT2. These were pre-printed from factory. And I just think it just looks so cool. From whatever angle you look at it, it just looks so much bigger than it should for a 10th scale. From whichever angle it just looks, particularly that angle, it looks so mean. It looks super cool. I love the fact that it's like it's literally a mini MT, mini monster truck. And even from the rear, it looks awesome. Love the shell, and the shell on this one is actually in really good condition. There's no cracks, there's no tears in the body. A couple of stickers are coming off, particularly on the exhaust side, which is usual because nitro oil from the exhaust gets under the stickers and kind of lifts them. But otherwise, actually, it's really cool. It's looking awesome. So that's good, because bodies, you can get them. You can get clear bodies pretty easily, but these are painted bodies I don't see very often, so I do need to keep an eye on that and just look after it. So here we go, the main event. So this is the MT2. It's powered by HPI's T15 Nitro engine. It's got a 75cc fuel tank. It's got all the stock radio bits in here, so we've still got the SF1 HPI's standard kind of from back then, servos both on steering and on throttle and brake. We've still got the stock radio in here as well, so it's HPI's TF4. I've got the controller here. This is the 27 megahertz before 2.4 gig turned up. You even got the little crystals in the top here that you used to have to swap out in case your mates were on the same frequency. I won't be keeping that in there. I will be dropping a Spectrum receiver in here and running my DX4 Rugged. They're not aluminium shocks, they're plastic body shocks. They are oil filled from factory. I believe 30 weight front and rear was kind of the standard, the stock setup. Interestingly, this one has a pull start on the engine, where again from factory, these were the kind of the first wave of models to come out with HPI's rotor start system. Yeah, she looks in good condition actually. A little bit dirty, a little bit grubby here and there. Otherwise, all the drive shafts, there's no bent drive shafts or anything like that. I've noticed actually in the hubs here, got extended hubs here, that was probably added, well certainly added by a previous owner. They look like aluminium. They look pretty good actually, and it really gives that wide stance. It looks great. A couple of things that bug my OCD a little bit. I like to keep my cars kind of OEM looking as it would from the factory. So this kind of stuff I'm going to change. I'll get this the HPI genuine sort of exhaust manifold gasket thing here. A random lime green zip tie, so we'll go back to black there. The exhaust manifold here itself is looking a little bit rough. There's no dents or anything, but I'll probably give that a good paint with high temperature paint just to tidy that up a little bit. I'll replace the fuel tubing, which I do anyway, particularly this part here. This was common on my Nitro RS4 as well. I don't know if you can just see that the fuel intake pipe rubs against the spur gear. It's just got stuck there between the spur and the clutch bell. There is a little nick actually on the fuel pipe there, so that needs changing anyway. I will just zip tie that out of the way once I've changed it. Other minor things like a random green body clip here, a blue one over here, they'll all go back to black. One thing I have noticed is Nitros, in my opinion, should always free roll. This one doesn't. It's like the brake is applied. However, the brake arm is slack. It's completely slack. There's no binding of the brake at all. And one thing I have noticed then is there's no play at all between the spur gear and the clutch bell. So it looks like the mesh is too tight. However, having a look underneath, as we can see, for the T15, you've got basically a preset position for your engine mounting. There's no adjustment there at all. You've got these holes here, which are for aftermarket engines. So you can then adjust the mesh of an aftermarket engine, but there's literally, you've just got this preset holes for the T15, so I can't actually change the mesh. I am wondering if somebody has put a larger clutch bell in, which would then obviously reduce the mesh. So I'm wondering if that's the case. Another thing I have noticed that may contribute to that is, I don't know if it's easy to show up on camera from this angle here, but just here where that green zip tie is, there's a very slight bend in the chassis. I don't know if you can see that. I really kind of need to strip it all down and really get a good look at the chassis to have a proper look, really. But that could, if the chassis is bent, the engine's not square, that could lead to, I don't know, a poorer mesh, if you like. So there's a couple of things I want to have a look at. The engine is covered in oil, covered in fuel, so there may be a couple of leaks there, and I'm not a massive fan of these air filters. There's literally just a little ball of foam that's just plugged into this hole here. So I'll try and get the upgraded air filter that came with the later models and the Firestorms and things like that. Wheels and tires, interesting one. They're definitely not stock. The tires themselves, they kind of like an FTX wheel and tire combo. But this one in particular feels like there's no foam in there, like there's nothing in there. So that's interesting. But the other three feel quite like you'd expect them to feel with foam. So that's interesting. I'd have to have a look at that. But they're all glued, so I'm not entirely sure. The wheels look a lot bigger than they should. I like the look. I've actually got a stock MT2 tire here, which I've been running on my Firestorm. So this is stock Geolander, which came on the MT2, and yeah, it's quite a bit smaller. So yeah, the wheels are bigger. That's what's going to alter the gearing. However, I much prefer, along with the wider stance with the hub extenders, axle extenders, I think it looks so much better with the bigger wheels. These wheels look a little bit flimsy. The tires aren't great. So I'll run it as is, see how we get on. I quite like this size, so I might look at keeping this kind of size going forward into the future. Right then, okay, so here we are outside. Let's give her a go. So I've checked the glow plug. It works. It glows nice red hot, so there's no real need to change it, especially for this, just to see if it starts up. We're going to put a little bit of fuel in the tank. Not a lot. We're not going to be running for long, so just a quick splash. It's not a big tank anyway. This is just 20% VP Nitro I'm using here to give her a fire up. From the factory, these MT2s came with the primer, just like the RS4s did on the fuel tank, same fuel tank. So we'll give that a go. We want to see some fuel coming up the fuel tube here. It's actually really stiff to push, so I'm not sure. Yeah, there's no fuel coming up the tube there, so I don't think that's working. So we're just gonna have to do it the old school way. We'll cover the end of the exhaust tip, a couple of pulls on the pull start, And I can see some fuel. Yeah, there's fuel up to the carb now. So let's see how she runs. Bit more of a prime. Let's go again. Good, she runs pretty well. She's running very rich. There's a lot of oil coming out of the pipe there. So, but at least she runs. Sweet. Good, so we got our successful start. That's I fully expected to start. That's exactly what was said in the eBay description. So I'm happy with that. Yeah, the only thing that concerns me, the engine is covered in oil and fuel, and it had a bit of a rough idle there, so it might have a bit of a leak. Particularly, I'm noticing, I'm not sure it's going to come across on camera, but you can see where the cylinder, the cooling head meets the cylinder, if you like, where the button head is in between, it's not level, and there's actually a few air bubbles coming out of there even as I speak. So I think something's not quite right there, something's not seated correctly or screwed down correctly. So we've definitely got a bit of a leak coming out the top here. Also around the exhaust manifold, they use paper exhaust gaskets, and there's a big leak coming from the top and bottom of that. So yeah, pretty happy. Generally, I haven't checked the electrics yet, but I might even likely change the servos out a bit further down the line. So what's the plan next? This had a leak at some stage, which hasn't been cleaned up. So I'm definitely gonna remove the engine, give the engine a good once over, take the exhaust off, pull starter off, just give it a really good clean, degrease it. Put a new air filter on it. As I said, change the exhaust manifold gasket here, change this over. Change all the fuel tubing. I think I'm going to strip it right down to the chassis and just have a look at how bad that chassis bend is. I really want to sort out the poor mesh here. So that's the plan going forward. Give her a good clean, freshen her up, ready for the summer, and hopefully take her out for a little bash. Like I said, I don't have a huge amount of time nowadays. Family commitments have taken over, but I will try and get some running videos of some of my cars coming up in the not so distant future, hopefully. So until then, yeah, thanks very much. See you next time.